Alright everyone, it's time for us to go ahead and compare the iPhone 14 Pro against the iPhone 13 mini and see which specific phone you should go and pick up. Now, you might be wondering why even compare these two phones. Well, Apple is still currently selling the iPhone 13 mini brand new inside of the Apple Store. So if you're walking inside of the Apple Store, you can actually go and pick up an iPhone 13 mini, which is actually pretty insane. Now, the 14 Pro is the more expensive phone, so it may make a little bit more sense to go buy that device. But if you want to save some money, the 13 series is still available, which is awesome. Now, links will be down in the description. We can go and pick up some of these iPhones, and you can help support the channel at the same time. Now, starting off with the outside of both these phones, the iPhone 13 mini had a 5.4-inch Super Retina XDR OLED display on the front of this. Now, personally, I think the display was actually pretty decent. It was a smaller form factor, so it is substantially smaller than the 14 Pro, but that is probably a big feature and a reason why people end up, buying this phone. They want to go ahead and have a device that pretty much is a smaller device that fits well in their hand, and this is one of those options. Now, this phone, originated from the 2020 design of the 12 mini, but they ended up fixing so many things that this probably should have been like the first iPhone mini series in general, because I feel like they would probably have a better reception. But this iPhone with its display, I think it looks pretty good. With the 14 Pro, on the other hand, completely different design, but still kind of more or less the same. So we have, this is very interesting, we have the dynamic island display. So it's still a Super Retina XDR OLED display. It's 6.1 inches, so it is a much bigger panel than the iPhone 13 mini, but the thing is that the dynamic island, it still kind of protrudes into the phone just as much as almost like the notch. So it's not even like you're literally gaining more screen real estate. If anything, you're kind of losing more because it sticks down and you can't really do anything with the bezel that's on top of it. Now, it is useful in some ways, like you can go ahead and get notifications and stuff. But beyond that, I don't really know of too many people who've even been hyped up about the dynamic island since the first 2 days after they bought it, including myself. So, in terms of the front, definitely the 14 Pro with its ProMotion display, it's definitely going to look much better, but I still think the 13 mini is a pretty good display, and it's about only a year or two old now as of this point, since the 12 mini's design. Now, they both have Lightning ports at the bottom, so no USB-Cs on either one of these. And on the back, we have a little bit of a different setup as well. So we have full-on glass back on the iPhone 13 mini, which is that standard glass back. Now, what this type of glass back is it pretty much, it's the same glass back that we had on pretty much all the other phones before it, which is cool. You have a dual camera setup on that phone as well, with wireless charging and MagSafe capability as well. With the iPhone 14 Pro, we have this frosted glass back. Now, this glass back I love. It originated from the 11 Pros, and I'm going to tell you these are some of the best type of backs to pretty much ever put on your device. These things look so great. I love when Apple went ahead and just threw these types of, backs on these types of phones about 3 years ago. And ever since then, they've been doing it year after year after year, and they look phenomenal. Now, we also have a triple camera setup on this phone with a LiDAR sensor as well. So definitely when it comes down to it, both these phones look great, but the 14 Pro definitely looks way better on the back than the 13 mini does, in my opinion. Now, another big thing, in terms of the colors you can choose from, you have about 4 different colors you can choose from for the iPhone 14 Pro, or you have 6 different colors you can choose from for the iPhone 13 mini. So you have a little bit more, customizability options on the 13 mini than on the 14 Pro. Now, in terms of the camera setups, like I mentioned before, we have a little bit of a different setup. So with the 13 mini dual camera setup, a wide and an ultra wide lens, it's a true depth front camera as well. With the iPhone 14 Pro, it has a 48 megapixel, wide angle lens, an ultra wide sensor, and a telephoto lens as well. And we also have that true depth front camera with autofocus, which I don't really know. I thought all the front cameras had autofocus, but I guess they don't. And we also have a new photonic engine for incredible detail and color. So that is another cool thing for these two. For zooming in and zooming out, it looks like on the iPhone 14 Pro, we have optical zoom range, 6x, and the 13 mini, we have 2x optical zoom range. Now, personally, pretty much every single thing I've done with my iPhone 13 mini camera, it's been solid, I think it's been pretty good. It hasn't been perfect. Again, you're missing that telephoto lens, but between these two phones, you kind of have similar experiences. You have the same types of features. So you have things like cinematic mode, you have portrait mode. You are getting action mode on the iPhone 14 Pro. you are getting probably better video quality, better photo quality all over the place, and you're also getting that, better telephoto lens as well. So you have the ability of zooming in and zooming out a lot into a photo, and the 13 mini still can zoom in a lot. I would say for, a lot of people watching this, you will probably be content with something like a 13 mini, but still the 14 Pro, if you want to future-proof yourself for the, longest period of time, it may make a little bit more sense to go buy the 14 Pro, because that camera is seriously pretty good in my opinion. So in terms of the camera setup, definitely a thumbs up for me. Now, another thing is with the future of both these phones. With the 14 Pro, as of right now, it's going to be the longest lasting iPhone that's available right now. Now, the 13 mini is only a year old, so because of that, it's probably going to last still a very long time. It's not going anywhere anytime soon. But another big thing that Apple's kind of been doing recently is actually within the, chipsets within these devices. So with the iPhone 14s, the base models, those iPhones actually kind of have the same chipset as the iPhone 13 mini, which is actually pretty insane. So because of that, I don't know if the iPhone 14s are going to last as long as the 13 mini, or if the 13 mini is going to last as long as the 14, or if the 14 is going to last as long as the 14 Pro. I'm not really too sure yet, but it could end up helping the 13 mini in the future if it actually ends up, if Apple ends up, supporting the 13 mini for an extra year, or maybe supports it as long as the iPhone 14s. So we don't really know yet, but that is probably another thing to keep in mind. Now moving on to the performance side of things, this is typically, I guess when we're going from one phone to the other, from one year to the other, you're really not going to be seeing like crazy differences in the performance segment. At least that's just what I see every year. With the iPhone 13 mini, we had that Apple A15 bonding chip inside of it with 4 gigabytes of RAM. With the iPhone 14 Pro, has that Apple A16 bonding chip inside of it with 6 gigabytes of RAM. Now, between both, I think the 14 Pro is definitely going to be the faster phone. But with the 13 mini, for its size, it is actually a very fast phone. Like, it is kind of deceiving for how fast this phone is. Even the 12 mini was pretty fast. The 12 mini just wasn't really that great in battery life, but otherwise, the 12 mini was a very fast phone, and the 13 mini, with that, better chipset inside, is also a very fast phone as well. This thing theoretically can pretty much handle everything you throw at it. If you're playing, super intensive games like Genshin Impact, if you're, responding to texts, if you're doing Snapchats and all this other stuff, this phone, is going to be well optimized for those types of applications. So that is probably a massive thing to keep in mind. Now with the 14 Pro, this phone, like I said before, it's going to be the best performing iPhone you can pick up right now. So if you want to go ahead and just walk into a store and get the best performance top, from point A to point B, this is going to be the fastest phone. You're getting more RAM, you're getting a better chipset inside than the 13 mini as well, and you're getting an 120Hz ProMotion display as well. So because of that, that makes the 14 Pro, in my opinion, a little bit of a better phone in that standpoint. Because you're able to go ahead and pick up a phone that actually has a smoother display, it makes the phone feel that much faster as well. So in terms of performance, the 14 Pro definitely wins. And in terms of battery life, at least from Apple's website, they mentioned that the iPhone 13 mini can go up to, 17 hours of video playback. The 14 Pro can get up to 23 hours of video playback. Now, the 14 Pro I think is still going to give you better, battery life for sure, but the 13 mini was a pretty big jump up from the 12 mini, and for it being in such a small form factor, it definitely is a pretty, good battery life, I would say, in that, regard as well. So to kind of sum up this whole entire video, I think the iPhone, 13 mini is still a very good phone that you should probably pick up, but if you have the ability to, I would recommend going up and buying the iPhone 14 Pro. That is definitely one of the best phones you can buy. But regardless, the 13 mini is still a very good phone. You can also still pick up an iPhone 13 as well. That's kind of how they compare. If you have any other thoughts or questions, let me know in the comment section below. Hit the like button, that would mean so much, but definitely hit that subscribe button. More importantly than everything else, I love every single one of you guys. Hopefully I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace out till then.